If you like sci-fi and vampires, desiccated corpses, Jean-Luc Picard and boobies, then Lifeforce deserves a place on your watch list. But despite being on several lists of must-watch B-movies and becoming a legitimate cult classic, Lifeforce is not a B-movie. Anyway, the Space Shuttle Churchill is exploring Halley's Comet. After all, it won't be back for 70 years. It finds a huge alien craft containing dried-up bats and some naked human-looking folk in glass display cases. It's clear from the start that this film has some great visual effects. The shuttle looks pretty good. It looks utilitarian and cramped. The tiled exterior gives texture and depth. There's a grand sense of scale as they float alongside the huge alien ship, and as they traverse the tunnels of the alien craft, they almost resemble blood vessels. There's something oddly organic about it. It definitely seems otherworldly. The scenes look incredible. This easily compares with high-budget 80s sci-fi. It's well shot, it's atmospheric, it's convincing. The shuttle soon goes quiet, and a second shuttle eventually rendezvous with the drifting Churchill. Again, the shuttle interior looks amazing, and the disorientating upside-down camera angles really help to convey weightlessness. The music heightens tension, and the constant sound of laboured breathing puts you on edge. Director Hooper turns tension into an art form. There's a definite shift in tone towards horror when we see what's left of the burnt-out Churchill, including a pretty decent jump scare. We go from gleaming white surfaces to something more gritty and grimy. There's even particles floating in the air to really sell the feeling of floating around in space, but somehow squeaky clean in the midst of it all are those naked bodies. It turns out that these nude space folk suck the energy or soul. If only there was some word to describe it. Ah yes, life force. They suck the life force out of people in order to survive. The two male vampires can shapeshift, and the female one seems to be able to transfer her life force into other bodies, which sets up a sort of cat and mouse plan to catch her, whatever. The most striking special effects are the dried up living husks left behind after a vampire sucks someone's life force. We see several of these, and they genuinely creep me out. They're operated in a way which maintains a level of credible movement, and they even explode if they don't manage to acquire another's life force in time. I know some of them may look a bit goofy to modern eyes, but it's obvious that these dried up zombie-like figures required a huge investment of time and skill. You also need to consider that horror-type scenes usually make good use of negative fill and subdued lighting, but these scenes are brightly lit, and every detail is on show. There's nowhere to hide. You can imagine that a typically dimly lit horror scene would look even creepier and more forgiving. I love these figures. I've shown these scenes to other people, and they reacted by going, "Ugh," and then laughing. Philistines. I guess they do fall into that uncanny valley territory, where they look eerily real, but once they open their eyes, it's difficult to see past the effect. But they are fantastic effects. Definitely more fantastic than this shot of Patrick Stewart's face bleeding out. But again, with some more subdued lighting and some conveniently placed shadow, any flaws could have been masked here. Anyway, like I say, Lifeforce is not a B-movie. This isn't some cheap-ass film, it's a big-budget production with some top-level talent. Texas Chainsaw Massacre director Tobe Hooper helms the project. One of the screenwriters was Dan O'Bannon, a huge name in sci-fi movies. He wrote the screenplay for Alien amongst other things, and would go on to be a scriptwriter for Total Recall. He was also a co-writer on John Carpenter's cult classic, Dark Star. The score was composed by multi-Oscar and 21 Grammy Award winner Henry Mancini, the man behind the classic Pink Panther theme and Breakfast at Tiffany's. The film utilises a combination of celebrated stage, TV and film actors, most notable at the time being RADA stalwart and BAFTA Oscar Golden Globe nominee Frank Finlay. But probably most famous nowadays is Patrick Stewart, digging deep into his RSC training to deliver performances like this. But the star of this film is undoubtedly Mathilda May. After struggling to find a British actress willing to spend so much time completely naked, French ballerina Mathilda May was brought in to brave the British weather. This was principally filmed in winter, and the vast majority of her scenes are spent with no clothes. Her assets are one of the reasons credited to this film gaining a strong following in the VHS market. Her nudity in the film is clearly gratuitous, but within the film itself, it's never bawdy.
Oh, hello!
In-universe, the naked vampire isn't subjected to overtly sexual comments, and objectification feels minimised. Even when she emerges and wanders the military hospital, the reaction to a young naked woman raises alarm rather than eyebrows, or anything else for that matter. It's probably the most respectful on-screen treatment of a fully naked female I've seen in a horror film. Her sexuality is part of her power, it's something to fear. I'm definitely not claiming that this is progressive and non-exploitative though. She is no doubt a depiction of male sexual fantasy. There is no narrative reason for her to be so blatantly on display for protracted periods of time, and I can't help but think that I'm basically seeing a 19-year-old kissing men twice her age, which really isn't my thing. And reading interviews and listening to commentaries by production staff, many frequently refer to how much they enjoyed having so much nubile flesh on show, which feels a bit icky now. There was additional darkening added in post-production to hide Mathilda May's naughty bits in some scenes, by applying shadow over them. But I also think that the same technique was used to accentuate her silhouette in this scene where her chesticles appear unnaturally jiggly. I'm certain that this was added in post-production to add a bit more tit to the titillation. It's also worth noting that although there's a lot of female nudity here, there's very little male nudity. If you look hard enough, you might spot a little bit of peen here and there, but other than that, it's basically tops only as far as the fellas go. That fella there, by the way, is Chris Jagger, Mick Jagger's brother.
Hello, bro. I love the film.
The film struggled with censorship laws, as it was on the edge of what was considered pornographic, which would have resulted in a stricter certificate. As male nudity rules are more harsh, and here's an interesting fact.
Interesting fact.
Even when there is a glimpse of chipolata, you're not actually seeing anything as the actors are wearing cock socks to cover their members.
That's interesting.
The plot of Lifeforce often gets a bit convoluted, and the film tries to get around this by using some of the most clumsily delivered exposition I've ever seen in a film. Concepts are introduced on an absolute whim and immediately accepted without any challenge. For example, the ridiculous method of killing the vampire aliens. It's ridiculous because it's so exact and based on absolutely nothing. It's just meaninglessly explained as the old way.
The old way, Carlson.
A leaded metal shaft penetrating not through the heart, but through the energy center 2 inches below the heart. Whatever. Another example is when a corpse becomes reanimated 2 hours after death. This is the first instance of it, and yet it becomes an established pattern.
It's exactly 2 hours.
The film also features some pretty intense overacting and overreactions.
Oh, Christ.
Even when we get a full apocalyptic scene set in London, there's no tension because the silliness jars with the drama. The London set, which we see get damaged, was actually an abandoned model village based on London from a UK amusement park. Ambition seems to overstretch the sensibilities of this film, but the film gets away with it because despite the insanity of everything that's happening, every line is delivered straight. The performances are so dry and serious despite the crazy visuals and a bonkers story. Usually this would be used for comic effect, like with Leslie Nielsen in Airplane or Naked Gun, but Lifeforce always feels like a film unaware of its strangeness.
What the hell is that?
As though everyone watching the film knows, but the production team isn't in on it. They're too involved, too immersed in it to actually see the quirky moments.
What's it doing now?
You'll never believe what I'm looking at.
For example, I don't think I've ever seen a film with as many scenes of people opening doors.
Thank you.
Actually, on the Arrow release Blu-ray, which I've got here somewhere, Michael Armstrong, one of the additional script editors, does say that the story was ridiculous, and he initially thought it was a parody when he first read it. Lifeforce does successfully link in with established vampire lore, and attempts to explain it with a sci-fi twist. For example, coffins. These are analogous to the glass boxes. We've got bats, sort of. Sucking blood. This is replaced with sucking life force. Having a character retelling the tale is like Bram Stoker's opening narrative. In the original Dracula story, we had seductive females and the beautiful Bloofer girls. Well, here, we have Space Girl. And yes, that really is how she's credited in the film. There's a psychic link to victims, and part of the film is set in Yorkshire, which happens to be the greatest place on earth and features pretty heavily in the original Dracula story.
If it's outside Yorkshire, it's not worth bloody visiting.
It's hard to pinpoint what makes Lifeforce such a cult classic, but it's likely a combination of all the weird moments. The usual B-movie tropes like excess nudity and over-the-top gore, the unique-looking visual effects, and a clash of solemnity and irreverence. It feels like Cannon Films are trying to hammer a schlocky B-movie-shaped film through a serious cinema-shaped hole. It's a film which often feels like it's best enjoyed on a large cinema screen, but a few moments later has the feel of a straight-to-video release. Does the film get away with it? Well, yes and no. The film doesn't feel like a stupid camp film, but it also doesn't feel like a piece of serious cinema. This is no Alien. Lifeforce is an oddity, and I think that's why it's become a cult classic. Those expecting a cheap-ass B-movie will be blown away by the visuals, music, acting talent, cinematography and all that jazz. The film was worked on by some amazing talent with a decent budget, while those wanting a highbrow cinema experience are probably unlikely to pick this up. But if they did, the sheer bonkersness leaves you wondering, what the hell did I just watch? Personally, I love this film. Tobe Hooper was given a big budget and free rein to do what he wanted, and we end up with a fairly unique picture, which impresses more than it baffles. This is an extravaganza of practical effects, which appeal to me way more than CGI. The score is beautiful. Oh, and make sure that you watch the director's cut, aka the international cut. In the extras on this 4K Blu-ray, several people talk about how TriStar killed the film by hacking it to bits in the edit. Hooper and others were personally very upset by this corporate interference. The theatrical version was cut mainly because of attitudes to nudity in the USA, and the extra runtime in the international cut works much better. Lifeforce. It's not a B-movie, but it's a cult film that definitely should be on your watch list. Hooper said he wanted to make the film as wild as he could, and that lack of restraint makes this film a bit of a gem, and one of my personal favourites. Goodbye.
Yes!